September 1944. The Hurtgen Forest, Germany. American intelligence intercepts a German military transmission. It's urgent. Panicked, even. The message is simple, but chilling. Terry Allen's division is moving into the sector. Expect aggressive action. All units, maximum alert. This wasn't about Patton. It wasn't about Eisenhower or Bradley. This was about a man most people have never heard of. A general who drank too much, who swore like a sailor, who disobeyed orders and got himself fired, twice. And yet, when the shooting started, there was no one. The Germans feared more. His name was Terry de la Mesa Allen, but to his men, he was simply Terrible Terry. And to the Wehrmacht, he was a nightmare made flesh. This is the story of the most badass American general of World War II. A man who led from the front lines, who turned undisciplined misfits into elite killing machines, who was so effective at destroying German forces that Nazi commanders would literally retreat when they learned he was in the area. He didn't fight wars from a desk. He fought them with a rifle in his hand, a cigar between his teeth, and absolute hell in his wake. This is the legend of Terrible Terry Allen. Terry de la Mesa Allen was born in 1888 in Fort Douglas, Utah, a military brat through and through. His father was a career Army officer, which meant young Terry grew up surrounded by soldiers, discipline, and the unforgiving culture of the American Frontier Army. But Terry Allen was not a model cadet. He attended West Point, where he promptly established himself as a problem child. He racked up demerits. He broke curfew. He drank. He brawled. He was the kind of cadet who drove instructors insane. Brilliant, but utterly unwilling to follow meaningless rules. He graduated in 1912, ranked 115th out of 118 cadets. Dead last in discipline. But here's the thing about Terry Allen. He didn't care about looking good on paper. He cared about one thing and one thing only: winning fights. And when World War I erupted, that's exactly what he did. Allen served in France with the 90th Infantry Division. He wasn't some rear echelon staff officer. He was in the trenches, leading men, taking enemy fire. And he was good at it. He was wounded in action, gassed, shot through the face at the Battle of Saint-Mihiel, a wound that left him with a permanent scar and a voice that sounded like gravel in a blender. But he kept fighting. By the end of the war, he'd earned a reputation: tough, fearless, and completely unbreakable. Between the wars, Allen became a cavalryman. He loved horses, loved the frontier spirit of the cavalry. But more than that, he loved the idea of mobility, aggression, and decisive action. While other officers spent the 1920s and 30s shuffling papers and playing politics, Allen trained. He studied warfare. He became an expert in small unit tactics, maneuver warfare, and, most importantly, leading from the front. He didn't believe in commanding from a headquarters miles behind the lines. He believed in being with his men, in the mud, in the fire, sharing their danger. And when World War II began, the Army needed men like Terry Allen. In 1942, Allen was given command of the 1st Infantry Division, the legendary Big Red One. And that's when everything changed. The 1st Infantry Division wasn't just any unit. It was one of the oldest, most storied divisions in the U.S. Army. But when Terry Allen took command, it had a problem. It was too perfect, too by the book, too parade ground polished, too obsessed with regulations and spit-shine discipline. Terry Allen took one look at his division and said, "We're not here to win drill competitions. We're here to kill Germans." And he set about transforming the Big Red One into the most aggressive, most feared infantry division in the European theater. Allen threw out the rule book. He encouraged his men to think independently, to improvise, to take initiative. He trained them relentlessly in live-fire exercises, not the safe, sanitized kind, but realistic combat scenarios where men could actually get hurt. He abolished meaningless inspections. He let his men wear whatever they wanted in the field. Mismatched uniforms, captured German gear, whatever worked. And most shockingly of all, he lived with them. While other generals slept in chateaus and requisitioned mansions, Terry Allen slept in foxholes. He ate K-rations. He walked the front lines every single day, cigar clenched in his teeth, asking his men what they needed. His soldiers worshipped him. And then came North Africa. November 1942. Operation Torch. The first major American offensive of the war. The Big Red. One hit the beaches of Algeria, then pushed east into Tunisia to face Rommel's Afrika Korps, and this is where Terrible Terry earned his name. At the Battle of El Gueter in March 1943, Allen's division faced a massive German counterattack. Panzers, artillery, veterans of the Afrika Korps who had crushed British and French forces for 2 years. The Germans expected the inexperienced Americans to break. They didn't. Allen was everywhere, directing artillery, rallying infantry, personally leading counterattacks. At one point, he grabbed a rifle and joined his men in repelling a German assault. His division held, then counterattacked, then crushed the German offensive. Rommel himself noted the ferocity of the American defense. But Allen wasn't done. Sicily, July 1943, the Big Red One spearheaded the invasion. And once again, Allen led from the front. He drove his division forward with relentless aggression. When other units stalled, the Big Red One kept moving. When German defenses seemed impenetrable, Allen found a way through. His division covered more ground, captured more objectives, and inflicted more casualties than any other American unit in Sicily. But here's where the story takes a turn. Allen's superiors, Eisenhower, Bradley, Patton, began to worry. Not about his effectiveness. Everyone agreed he was the best combat general in the theater. No, they worried about his discipline. Allen's men were hard-drinking, brawling, undisciplined when out of combat. They got into fights with British troops. They ignored regulations. They were loyal to Allen, not to the broader chain of command. And Allen? He defended his men, refused to punish them for minor infractions, told his superiors that discipline in garrison didn't matter, only results in combat. In August 1943, Eisenhower and Bradley made a decision that shocked the entire army. They fired Terry Allen, relieved him of command, sent him home, the best combat general in the European theater, dismissed because he didn't play by the rules. But the story doesn't end there. Terry Allen went back to the United States in disgrace. For most officers, that would have been the end. A quiet retirement, a footnote in history, but the Army had a problem. It was 1944. D-Day was coming. The invasion of Europe, and the Army needed every good general it could find. More importantly, they had a division that was struggling. The 104th Infantry Division, the Timberwolves, was filled with green recruits, undertrained, undisciplined, demoralized. Someone in the War Department had an idea. What if we gave it to Allen? And so, in disgrace, Terry Allen was brought back, given command of a division nobody else wanted, and he did it again. Within months, Allen transformed the 104th into an elite fighting force. He used the same methods: lead from the front, train realistically, inspire loyalty, encourage aggression. In October 1944, the 104th Infantry Division landed in France and entered combat, and the Germans immediately knew they were in trouble. Intelligence reports from captured German documents show that Wehrmacht commanders specifically tracked Allen's movements. When they learned the 104th was entering a sector, they would reinforce defenses or, in some cases, withdraw entirely. They called him Der Schreckliche, the Terrible One. Allen led the 104th through some of the bloodiest fighting of the war. The Battle of Aachen, the Hürtgen Forest, the drive into Germany itself, and everywhere he went. His division performed brilliantly. By the time the war ended in May 1945, the 104th had advanced over 1,000 miles in 7 months, liberated multiple concentration camps, captured over 100,000 German prisoners, suffered the lowest casualty rate of any American division that saw continuous combat, all because of one man. When Germany surrendered, Terry Allen stood with his men in the ruins of the Third Reich. He was 57 years old, exhausted, scarred, but victorious. After the war, Allen retired quietly. No fanfare, no ticker tape parades. He died in 1969, largely forgotten by the American public, but not by his soldiers. At his funeral, hundreds of veterans from the 1st and 104th Divisions came to pay their respects. Grown men, hard, weathered combat veterans, wept openly, because Terry Allen wasn't just a general. He was the man who led them through hell and brought them home. History remembers Patton, Eisenhower, MacArthur, the generals who commanded armies, who shaped strategy, who became household names. But there's another kind of general, rarer, more precious, the kind who fights with his men, not behind them, the kind who earns loyalty not through rank, but through shared danger, the kind who gets fired for winning the wrong way and comes back to win again. Terry de la Mesa Allen was that kind of general. He wasn't perfect. He drank too much. He swore too much. He broke too many rules. But when it mattered, when lives were on the line and the enemy was at the gates, there was no one better. The Germans knew it. They feared him more than any other American commander. His soldiers knew it. They would have followed him into hell itself. And that's the real measure of a leader, isn't it? Not the medals, not the promotions, not the pages in history books, but whether, when the chips are down and death is staring you in the face, your men will look at you and say, "I'll follow you." Terry Allen's men said that every single day, and that's why, 80 years later, we still remember the legend of Terrible Terry. The general the Germans feared. The general the army fired. The general who won anyway.